Morning. Well, back on the Peugeot Partner engine again, and it's fucking hell Scorchio today, so roll the intro. So yeah, we're only like, I think 9-10 o'clock in the morning, Friday. Temperature is already hitting like 26-27 degrees, so me being a fat bastard, this ain't too nice for me. But yeah, anyway, so let's flip the camera around. We'll have a quick catch up as to where we're at so far with the Peugeot Partner engine. So we've started putting a couple of the auxiliaries on the block, and we've got the cylinder head on, torque down, and that was pretty much as far as we got. As you can see there, cam not torqued down, clearances to be done. So that is today's project. The other thing is as well is that we opened the deck up in the last video, and we did actually put some 16 valve con rods in, but we do need to talk about these con rods. So let's flip the camera back round. So some people, if you've got a keen eye, may have seen that the previous video I changed the title on it and everything, and I changed it to 8 valve con rods. Now, like I said, there's a lot of confusion on the part numbers for these fucking con rods. Got speaking to another mate, and he was adamant that 783s are 8 valve con rods. Had to go do a deep search and everything. I can't find any information on them. Even the old forums still don't have anything concerning the 16 valve con rods. The con rods, when they went in, so the 783s have got bead-head lasered down the side, and that was usually the sign of the earlier ones. But because I couldn't remember if genuinely they are 16 valve rods or not, I just changed the video titles and everything. So I'm going to have to go back and now change the video titles back to 16 valve, which is good news for me. And that's because after doing a lot of searching and everything, I found the part number code for the 8 valve HDI rods. Stupidly, I actually had it in my own photos from when I stripped a 2-litre HDI a little while ago, and I saved the crank and everything. But so the part number on the HDI shell, or HDI shells, HDI con rods is 373. And then, so yeah, can't remember what I just said for 16 valve, 783, 786, something like that. But yeah, we have actually got genuine 16 valve con rods in that block, so I mean, good news. But anyway, we need to start making some progress, so let's crack on. Okay, so I've now set myself a rudimentary table up, got the rocker cover off, rocker cover's down there, and we've now exposed the camshaft. So we'll look at the valve tolerances in the book, and not digging at anyone, but this is quite a common mistake people make. So they'll read inlet 0.15 to 0.07. That's incorrect. If you look closely, it says plus or minus. So what that actually means is, and we'll just get a pen out for this one, inlet, so we'll write it down, is 0.15, so plus or minus 0.7, or 0.07 rather, so that is 0.08 to 0.22. So in theory, we should only need 2 feeler gauges if these valves are in spec. Just put the lid back on the pen. So, inlet valve, this kitty here. Bring the lobe up to the very top, and now we've got our 2 feeler gauges set up ready. And I'd usually start off by going in with a thicker one, give it a push. Does it slip under? No. It means that gap is smaller than 0.22, which is good because we want to aim for 0.15. So next we take thinner feeler gauge, 0.08. That's our minimum gap we can have. And we will now offer that in there. And as you can see, it's actually not fitting. Now, this is where the fun comes in. So when that feeler gauge doesn't fit in on your smallest feeler gauge, what you then need to do is go through your feeler gauges, keep on slipping it under that cam until you can work out what size does actually fit. Once you've worked out what size it is, you can then write it down, and you need to keep that noted somewhere, because you've still got to go through the rest of the valves and repeat the process. What you do at the end is that value, what you've got, you then need to work out the difference from the 0.15 you're aiming for. Take the camshaft back out, measure your shim with a micrometer. Just quickly grab my micrometer to show you what one is. Okay, so this is a micrometer, and then what you'll do is you'll use that to measure the shim, and you can then calculate one of two things. One, the size thickness of shim you actually need to order, or two, we can do it that other way, how much you've got to lap off that shim to make that shim fit. So, of course, if you go through and all your shims are out, sometimes you can rearrange the shims to, well, be in a better position. But yeah, a lot of people will tell you you've got to go out and buy all new shims and everything. You should buy them and stuff like that. You can lap them down, that's not a problem. You can sand them, go with some fine sandpaper, make sure you do it on a pane of glass so it's nice and flat. And then when you put the shims back in, you leave the original side touching the bucket, because a lapped finish will actually suck the shim to the bucket and keep it there. And then the side you've just sanded, you put it face down onto the valve, and then that way it doesn't actually make any difference to the one you've just sanded and changed the tolerance of. But yeah, so it's already looking like this is going to be quite a long process. I'm going to try and set the camera up somehow. I forgot on my phone holder today. I'll jerry rig something up, and then yeah, put you on a time lapse and you can watch me have fun swearing at valves. Okay, so as you've just seen there, we've just measured the valve clearances. Right, so this is indeed my findings. So we can see that all the inlets, so 4 and 3, which is this cylinder and this cylinder, looks like there's no valve clearance at all. So we know straight away, because we need the optimum of 0.15, that's potentially how much we've got to shave off those shims. And then yeah, got to go away, do some quick maths and everything. So that's measuring in at 0.51, and yeah, well, say 0.51, that should actually be 0.051. But yeah, you get the picture. So I've got to add 0.1 of a mil on that one by shaving the shim. Got to add basically 0.1 of a mil on this one by shaving the shim. So, time to get busy. We'll strip the camshaft out, and then we'll start measuring the shims up with the micrometer. So, camshaft out, this is what you're looking at. So these are the buckets along here. All you do is you pop the bucket out, and then you reveal the shim. So this is the shim. Usually this would suck itself with oil pressure to the bottom of the bucket. So if you ever go to take a bucket out and you can't find it, quite often expect to see it sucked on the underside of there. But, right, so this is what we need to start looking at. Now, I've already put it in the micrometer and measured up, and currently it is 3.275 millimeters. So, because we didn't actually get a base reading at all off that, I'm going to assume that I need to take off 0.15 mil. So, that measurement should drop to roughly 3.12. So, if we look on the underside of this one, we can see somebody's already attacked this in the past. Now, that's going to be the side I attack as well, because I am not going to leave it with a finish like that. That's disgusting. But yeah, we're going to lap this down and then see what we get as a measurement afterwards. Well, that took a hell of a lot longer than expected to do. I ended up using little belt sander down there, forgetting the words because I'm that bloody hot. Little belt sander, took the majority of the material off with the belt sander and then lapped the shims in with 800 grit and then went up to 1200 grit. So a little bit of a slog. As you can see, I'm sweating my ass off. It's mainly because the workshop's so bloody hot today. But yeah, we've got there in the end. So just flipping the camera around, we can, standing on stuff as well. Flipping the camera around, we can now see all my workings out on the table and stuff. So all the exhaust shims seem to pass straight away, God knows why. But all the inlet ones were completely out. So 4 and 3, there was no clearance at all. I had to build them back in. So I started off by literally lapping 0.15 mil off them to see if it would bring them close into spec. It brought this one straight in, so we were kind of lucky with that one. But cylinder number 4 on the inlet, after taking 0.15 straight off, it only brought it to 0.051, so then I still had to take another 0.1 mil off. But we've got there in the end, so we've got the figures there. I've torqued all the cam caps back down. As you can see, I've just sprayed everything with a bit of oil. So just got some 1040 oil, a little squeegee bottle, and yeah, because I don't know how much longer this is going to sit. Hopefully only a couple of weeks, to be honest, but it's just good to get a little bit of oil around everything, get it all around these buckets so nothing has a dry start. Now going to put the rocker cover back on, and then we'll assess what else we can start doing on the block. Okay, so the rocker cover's now back on. I was looking at actually doing the thermostat housing next. So I had it playing around in my head, because the DW8 in the van is actually an XU derivative. I was kind of hoping that I might be able to use the thermostat housing off the DW8 with the newer style fuel filter housing, but I don't think it's going to quite play out. So if we just go have a look at it. So having a look at it, you can see the newer style fuel filter housing and stuff. These don't seem to suck air in, but what I have noticed, because the priming system is all over this side, it looks like this section here is actually going to mess with the breather oil filler pot. So bearing in mind, if we actually look at that, that is pretty much identical to the cylinder head on the XUD. So I think this thermostat housing would bolt on, but yeah, that fuel filler pot. So considering 2 sensors there, we've got a mount hole still back there. If we actually go back and compare it to an XUD I've got sat here semi-complete, so we can see like 2 sensor holes, same mounting hole. Now I've already checked it, the actual mounting to the cylinder head itself is identical, so they are interchangeable. However, as we can see, it's going to mess with that oil filler pot, so unfortunately that's that idea binned out. So we will have to stick completely with the XUD system. It's not a terrible thing. I think the XUD system looks clean. However, it'd have been nice to just eliminate any chances of air ingress into the fuel pump. So it's back there somewhere. I'll go dig out the stat housing and start cleaning it up to get that put back on. Christ, I swear down, if I get much red, I'm going to be the same colour as this bloody engine block. But yeah, talking about things red. So we've now got the XD thermostat housing back on. I have got to change this pipe fitting on the front end. I can't remember what it's bloody called now. Thermostat cover. The one which I need for the van, because I'm going to retain the van's radiator system, actually has an additional outlet down here now. To be fair, I could take the one off the van, that would fit, or I have also got one located on one of the engines down there, so I've got a couple of options to be able to put one on. Right, so yeah, obviously we'll put the oil breather filler pot on now, so I've got 2 brand new hoses on there. Anyone who's worked with these knows how brittle they go, but these are both just, well, I think this lower one is a Gates hose and this top one is a top ran. Now, the top one, they're not the best quality ever, so I've had a few of these now, and no 2 of these hoses seem the same. So this one today is actually the correct length. I've had ones show up in the past where they're slightly too short, but on the other hand, the moulding for the bottom half of the hose, you can't see it because I've now put it on, but the lower half of the moulding on the hose is actually quite thin compared to the top half. So yeah, they're a little bit hit and miss, but it's going to do the job because we're pretty much standard application. Right, so next, really it's just sort of bolting one piece on at a time. So I think what I'm going to aim for next is there should be a waterway piece in here which comes over, and then it will tee into a waterway which goes over here. I reckon I'll put that oil heat exchanger on. So I painted this up black, nothing too special, I just wanted to clean it up. However, this is the fatter version. So there's a couple of versions of these. As you can see, that's a slightly skinnier one. It just gives it a little additional coolant capacity really for the oil, and considering this will have a top mount intercooler but it isn't going to have no direct air feed to it, any additional coolant this engine can get is probably wise. Apart from that, I mean, looking at this, I'm just trying to jog my memory of what else I might need to swap over. Of course it's not coming to me, is it? But yeah, so I'll chuck that heat exchanger on, and then I will get the filter housing on, that's the word. I mean, as you can tell, I'm now really starting to slow down. It's only 2 o'clock, I've had food, I've had plenty of drink, but it's just sheerly how hot it is in here. I've done a combination of things. I've tried having the shutter door open, I've got like an industrial fan blowing on me, but it's just not bloody enough in this heat. I'm fat, I'm not made for the heat, okay? But yeah, so, well, I'll get that bolted on and we'll just carry on plodding. And all I'll do is I'll just do little incremental updates as to where we are. At the moment, we're not really doing nothing too exciting. Got to get a fuel pump sorted, so I have got a 10mm pump built. Don't particularly want to put a 10mm pump on it, truth be told. It's just that realisation I want to keep it reasonably standard, just a little bit turned up, so I'll probably have to change that 10mm element out for a 9mm. Hopefully that ain't going to be too bad to do, but all the seals are new and the pump's cleaned up. In fact, let's go have a little dig and see if we can find it. So yeah, this is the pump in question. It's already built, actually ready to go. As you can tell by the colouring, it was meant to go on the sedan, but I think it's going to be better intended for this XUD swap on the van. Mainly because she's a non-cold start model, and now the pump I've got down here, which actually came off this ZX lump, is a cold start model. Doesn't sound too bad, obviously, but the issue with the two is obviously that I'm not going to have no wiring for it because I've got to reuse the van's wiring loom. So if I can just keep this fully independent like that, looks cleaner, will be spot on. So yeah, ideal, I need to swap that 10mm head out. Didn't even stamp the head up, that's unlike me. But yeah, so I need to swap that 10mm head out. I'm not going to lie to you, part of me really can't be bothered to. I'll see how I feel. This heat's getting to me. But yeah, as you can see, I'm fucking melting. If the heat gets to me too much, that pump might just be a fuck it, it's going on exactly as it is. I ran a 10mm on a pretty stock van setup once before. On a pretty stock sedan setup. Really think I need to call it a day. Cool. Drip the sweat off. Yeah, I ran a 10mm pump once before on a pretty stock sedan setup, and it went really well. Throttle response was absolutely ace. The only issue I had is it did do the head gasketing eventually. Whether or not that was because it was an old head gasket, hard to tell. But I don't really know if I want to run the risk. So, yeah, we'll see. Okay, so just took the thermostat cover off. That's the original XUD one. This is the one that we're going to be using from the DW8, so still fits exactly the same. No issues there. But the only reason I want to do it like this is literally, as I said earlier, I want to take all the coolant pipes and basically amalgamate them into the XUD system. So we're keeping all the original radiators, expansion bottles and stuff like that. But, so where would that lead normally? That little output, it leads to the oil cooler. So this is one of the feed pipes which goes into the oil cooler, and then the other one returns just straight back into the radiator. Nothing too technical. Kind of hoping that's not split, but there's only one way of finding out really. So, yeah, we look at this and we can see this is where the con rod come out the block. It exploded through the oil filter housing. I mean, we'll just go have a look quickly. We'll ignore a small pond of coolant I've left behind. But yeah, as you can see, when it zooms back in, come on. No, not going to zoom in. Bloody thing. There you go. As you can see there, that's where the oil filter housing would have been mounted, and yeah, the con rod come straight past the oil filter, rip the oil filter housing out of the block. So, but again, another comparison, we can see here, naturally aspirated, that is what the oil cooler thickness is like. So that's an NA one, that's a typical XUD one, so you can see already double the oil coolant capacity. And then we can basically add one of them to one of them, and that is officially what we've got there. So all the oil coolant hopefully, and yeah, with the lack of airflow to that intercooler, all we can hope is that will do the bottom end some good. So right, I'm gonna get back on again. Okay, so just trying to work out this pipe to go to the oil cooler itself, and this is the one off the DW8. It would suffice. It doesn't fit too well. It touches the bottom of the pump just about there, and it just covers over that sensor. This is mainly because the feeds on that oil cooler point forwards, so they usually come out this way, 90 degrees. So naturally this doesn't want to sit properly unless you sort of bastardize it around a little bit. Now luckily, digging in my spares, I have an 806 engine back there, which this oil cooler originally came off, and it just so happens that it runs the same type of thermostat housing. So that is an original 806 XUD pipe, which just fits perfectly. So I'm hoping somewhere else I've also got the return line for the radiator, but if I haven't, that's not too much of a biggie. But yeah, that's hell of a find. I'm well happy with that. So I had a bit more of a dig around, and yeah, that 806 pipe fits perfectly. Also found the other pipe, so this return pipe which goes to the radiator was actually from the ZX, but again, they fit perfectly with each other. Of course you can kind of see what's going on up here. So yeah, might as well zoom out quickly. Chucked everything else on now. I've chucked the fuel filter housing on. Not really sure if that one's going to leak, but fingers crossed it doesn't. And the fuel pump, yeah, so I've now changed the head over. I did the head change a slightly sneaky way, where you can literally, if you sit the pump up on end, you can just take this off and very gently feed all the gubbins in to change the head over. It's extremely fiddly, and obviously if it goes wrong, you've then got to rebuild the entire pump. Got lucky, so I'm happy with that. So we'll zoom out and just have a proper look at it. To be fair, for an XUD lump, I'm pretty pleased with how clean this is coming out. Not really sure how much of the red will be seen once it's in the bay. Of course, we know from the sedan being blue, you don't get to see a lot of it once it's actually in there, but it looks pretty, it looks clean. I'm happy with it, and to be fair, at least when it goes into the van, I'll feel like I've done the job right. I'm probably going to cut this video off here. It's got quite late. I'm sweating profusely. I need a cold shower. And to be fair, I ain't going to get no more done on this. So yeah, you can see I am literally turning the same colour as the block. It's not that I've been out in the sun. It's literally just the sweat and the heat. So yeah, that is what it is. But I would say reasonable progress for a day. So what we've actually covered off today, we've managed to do all the valve clearances, changed that pump from a 10mm head to a 9mm head, and then obviously got all the thermostat housing on there and the oil filler pot, plus the actual oil filter and all the sandwich plate back in. So yeah, I'm going to cut this video off here. That's enough for one day. When we come back to this, next thing we're going to be doing is looking at doing the cam belt, finishing off all the timing gear and everything, and then we've got to start putting the induction back on, the turbo and all the gubbins on the back of the block. But for now, that's all. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you later. Give us a like and subscribe. See you later again.